Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're now moving into our first segment for the morning. This one is a conversation with reps of the Belize Diaspora Foundation. It's going to be on their perspective on Belize's COVID situation. Now, we know how tough it was when we got word that Belize had contracted its first case. In with us this morning to chit-chat about these things are Dr. Egbert Greenwich, who is a pediatrician, and Dr. Anna Lizama, OBGYN, family medicine, public health research, principal investigator. Wow, I have to take a deep breath when I said that one. But guys, good morning and welcome.
Well, thank you for having us.
It's so nice to have you in, Dr. Greenwich. Man, we haven't seen you in a while. You were one of Belize's most famous. Everybody, we're going to Dr. Greenwich with the baby.
Stop that.
But guys, so, tough times, I could tell you that much, and we could tell you that much. And when learning about this coronavirus and what had happened, especially out in the world, and so afraid that we would get it, then, bam, it hit home. It was devastating to us. It was a devastating thought. We didn't know what to do. You guys live out there in the U.S. What was the mindset when you heard about it, especially being right here at home? Tell us, what was your thought? Dr. Greenwich, let's start with you.
Well, good morning. Is it Isani? I think, what's your first name?
No, it's John. It's John.
Yeah.
Okay, John and Marlene and the rest of Belize, good morning. I feel like I'm on a trip back home. It feels great. I wish we had met under happier circumstances. We went through various moods in the US. I personally, for me, it peaked that weekend when, sorry to bring it up again, when the two twin doctors died, the fellow physicians and the minister per se. And I also lost a family friend to the coronavirus, a guy that I used to hang with in Belize. And so, like everything else, we human beings, we take things very seriously the closer it comes to home. Yeah. And I think shortly after that, some of my friends, people that I had grown up with in Belmopan, two ladies that live in the States, a doctor that lives in the States, and I met the great Anna Lizama for the first time. I had heard of her through Dr. Stuart Grant, who is a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And we got together. So your mood goes from severe sadness and crying. I think a lot of Belizeans admitted to me that they cried. And then hope in discussing the situation with others. We found hope. When we found someone willing to help us to help the situation, we got elated. And then disappointed when that person pulled out. And then hope again in that we found that we have a project that we will enlighten you on shortly that we found that we could probably work on to help the situation. So it's a varying mood. Right now, we feel a lot encouraged by the fact that things have improved, So lots of moods. We went through a lot of feelings and moods. But right now, it's mostly hope and the fact that we feel great that Belize is pulling through this, okay?
Yeah. So, Dr. Lizama, tell us a bit about how the foundation got started.
Okay. Well, we are part of a loosely organized group that is in the beginning phase of registering as the Belize Diaspora Foundation. We're trying to register as a nonprofit with a U.S. Belizean lawyer so that people can safely donate and volunteer. The initial group involves Belizean doctors, activists, scientists living abroad who saw how COVID has impacted the world and how it's impacted Belize. And as the pandemic spread in Belize, we went through all those emotions that Dr. Greenwich was talking about. But we have hope that things can change. I shared my despair on Facebook and got an overwhelming response from Belizeans who had the same thoughts and who wanted to help.
Yeah.
A group of us, including Dr. Greenwich, got together and we decided we wanted to focus on the vaccine distribution and creating a directory of doctors and other professionals who could help Belize in this crisis and in other crises coming down the road, or just in regular circumstances. We want to help with vaccine procurement when we're organized. And we've spoken to Dr. Bear, so we hope we can work with the Ministry of Health to help get this vaccine rollout underway.
You did mention when we're organized. So how long have the group been in dialogue to try and get some help through?
We started meeting probably about a month ago, 2 months ago.
No, we met around the time. Remember, the twins died. When was that? That was around Christmas.
Was it Christmas?
Around just before the between the election and Christmas, we met after the surge, the start of that surge.
Yeah,
So I would say about almost 3 months now, Anna. 2.5 months, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah.
You know what's interesting, I think, about this group is that we talk very often about the diaspora and the professionals that we have living in different parts of not just the United States, but all over the world. And there are a lot of esteemed medical professionals, especially, that are working in the United States. I saw you had a list of maybe about 6 or 7. Very sure there are more than that, right?
Yes. One of the goals of the Belize Diaspora, Marlene, is we want to use this as a segue, if you will, to tap into all those other Belizean professionals out there. We are certainly not representative of the larger group out there, and we hope that this disaster, or if you want to call it this worldwide pandemic, will help us to bond together so that when it might be the pandemic today, it might be a hurricane tomorrow.
Yeah.
We can all, help. We can tap into this directory and get resources like human resources, financial resources, other resources to assist the country that gave us our start. We are united by our love for Belize and the fact that we want to see Belize return to its lifestyle and the way of life that our people are used to.
Yeah. You know, our latest COVID numbers, we were talking about it this morning, we're just about 200 active cases, and it is one of those things that you feel cautiously optimistic. It looks good, but we pay attention to what's happening in the rest of the world as they're battling their third wave, and we just wonder. I mean, I think the pessimists especially would be, the doom and gloom is coming. What are your thoughts, given the experience that you're having over there?
Well, I really think that, Belize is set. We are a small country. We're talking about less than 420,000 people. So there's really no reason why we cannot put a break on this pandemic by mass vaccination, by getting herd immunity, 70 to 80% of the people of Belize vaccinated, and actually requiring that people who come into the country after that be vaccinated and be monitored. So I really think that looking at what's happening in the United States, Belize is a small segment, a very tiny segment. We can get this pandemic under control through vaccination.
Yeah. And for you, Dr. Greenwich, what are some of your observations?
Well, it's no secret that where we live, it's not been optimally managed, but our earlier fear for the demise of our way of life has been replaced by hope. And we think that, like you just said, we're optimistic about the latest situation, this latest state status report. But we think that the icing on the cake, and you notice that we have spoken mostly about vaccine. We know that a lot of public health measures and other things like curfew have been put in place. We are aware of the economic impacts that these have if you keep repeating them, and that surges will they will occur. So we think that the vaccine is the way to go, and we rely on other groups to supply things like supplies that they need and so on and so forth. But we think the vaccine, along with the public health measures, is the way to go. And we are, like Anna said, we have a small size. It's my personal opinion that this is doable. I think it should have been done already, but I am not, I am just a voice in the darkness. And I think we are optimistic that since we can't help procure vaccines at this point, that our best bet is to help with the human resource, getting the vaccine rolled out, if you will, or disseminated or distributed.
Dr. Greenwich, you worked, when you worked in Belize, you worked at the KHMH, and so you understand the situation on the ground there. How concerned were you when you started to see those surges and knew that the number of people who were going to be hospitalized would only grow?
Yes, I had more than the other members of the group, and I always tell them this, and I have to remind them that I am not trying to talk down to them. For, if you will, I am the voice of truth in the group, in that, I just left Belize relatively a short while ago. I mean, I don't even mind telling you, I'm still more Belizean. I am more Belizean in my mindset than anything else. I am not really there. Most of them have been in the US over 20 years.
Wow.
I think Anna has been there 45 years. So when it came to planning and everything, I was able to say, listen, Belize can do a lot of things very well, and I understand what's going on. But I think if we want to have the highest impact, we should help in trying to get this vaccine rolled out. But we were very, very, very moved by the figures and the stories of the medical corps being overworked, being depleted by illness, and also if you notice, an aspect of this rollout is the first people in any country that will receive these vaccines in Belize as in elsewhere are the frontline health workers. So this will come to give them a buffer, if you will, between their bodies and this epidemic. So it's very important to get this vaccine rolled out to protect our workers. My wife said to put in a plug, not only for the medical doctors and the nurses and what have you, but she said, put in a plug for the ordinary people, because we have a friend who is like, the people that move the trolleys and so on, and dispose of the medical waste. So my wife said, Egbert, I know you're going on this show this morning, put in a plug that those people that take care of the waste also receive the vaccine. I said, I don't know, I'll put it in. There was a story out of New York early in the phases of the epidemic that many minority workers who work, in the bowels of these large hospitals lost their lives because they were not protected adequately. They were not given the proper masks, the proper gloves. So now that this vaccine is coming around, I say shout out to the unheard workers, the ones behind the scenes, not only the doctors and the nurses, but those who clean the waste, change the beds, push the trolleys. They are exposed perhaps even more because the medical waste contains a large amount of the virus. As you know, it can live on inanimate surfaces for days. That's why we encourage people to wipe surfaces. So, this is they are very important too. So plug out for them.
That is absolutely true. You're right. When you think of the team of healthcare workers that are involved in care and treatment. So let's talk about how you envision being able to assist in the procurement of vaccines.
Anna?
Well, the procurement, Belize government has to be the one. The Minister of Health and the government of Belize are the ones who are going to procure the vaccines. They will not sell to private entities or anything like that. So we are willing to help them with trying to get funding, whatever it might take to get the vaccines as we need to. On the other hand, we can be a big resource for human resources. We form a registry of nurses and logistical workers, like who can help us with waste management and stuff like that. We're going to get a directory of that and try to help them get credentials so that when the vaccine becomes available in Belize, we can go down and actually help. All our people who are coming down as volunteers are in the process of getting their own vaccines, and so they will be hopefully protected and not be able to spread anything themselves.
Yeah.
And once we get that, then we can actually come up with a scheduling where we can go down and actually disseminate people to different villages.
Yeah.
Dr. Bear tells us that she needs extra help in in each village or each district to give the vaccine once it becomes available.
Yeah.
So we can do that. And we are also thinking of working with nonprofits like the Belize Association of Central Florida to help us raise funds for these projects ongoing.
I've got a lot of Belizean friends who live in the U.S. and they're actually RNs, and we speak a lot in terms of how we could be of maximum help, because we know where we want to go. We want to get rid of this virus. But if they would want to be a part of this group, how can they be a part of the Belize Diaspora Foundation?
Well, what we're going to have a way that they can get in touch with me either on Facebook Messenger or through my email. I need their information, email, phone number, and we'll work with them to get their credentialing done through the Ministry of Health in Belize. So they will need to be sending me their licenses and maybe a short CV so that we can get them in the system. And hopefully we can create a schedule so that when the rollout comes out, we can disperse people to the different districts. Hopefully in the districts where they came from or are interested in.
Yeah. That's I think that is something. Clearly, you've had conversations with representatives of Ministry of Health. You speak of Dr. Beer. She's on, I believe, the technical working group for the vaccine rollout, and very critical role in the Ministry of Health. Talk to me about some of the other areas that you've explored. So getting trained persons to come down to Belize who are already vaccinated to go into rural areas and administer vaccines. So that means you won't have to shift around people from clinics or from the larger municipalities into villages, and you can have qualified persons still distributing or providing the vaccine. What other areas have you explored?
Well, they always say don't promise what you can't deliver, but what I want to tell you something. So I want to go back to what Anna had said. If you could switch that slide that says creating herd immunity. We had talked about procuring vaccines, Marlene, but as you know, that's quite a $1 million effort, and we are just in our infancy of organizing and registering. So we have to focus. When we had 2 meetings with the ministry, and on the second meeting, Dr. Baird, she was the one that led us to this idea of helping out with the human resource. Something of this magnitude has never been done in Belize. I mean, at one time, to try and jab people, over 100,000 people, if you will. So Belize is optimally placed to achieve herd immunity. 55% of our population is over 16 years. That's about 220,000 people. Right now, the vaccines have been studied mainly in people greater than 16 years old. Studies are just starting between 8 and 16. To quote the recent report to the House by the Minister of Health, as you know, we have 215 to 220,000 doses promised. That's enough to vaccinate at one time about a half of the population at once, or 1/3 if they get the 2 cycles of the vaccine. The vaccine that they're using too is a great one. If you were to go to that slide with how some of the COVID-19 vaccines compare, you'll see that the AstraZeneca one that we are getting is cheap, affordable, sorry is a better word.
Yes.
For the sensitive minded. And it stores well. It stores at regular fridge temperature, and the effectiveness is quite acceptable at 62 to 90%.
Okay.
Why get a Moderna or a Pfizer, which would probably, in our hot temperatures, probably spoil, to use a layman's term. Also, I heard, or I read also from Anna, she sent me a copy of the minister's presentation to the House, that we got some of the
Sputnik.
heralded Sputnik ones. And they are also in a more affordable range, and they also store well. So getting the vaccine out is our main area that we want to help. And later on, when we get our act together, we will try to help with funding supplies and buying more vaccines so that we can help our country to reach herd immunity, if you will. That's our plan. That's what we promise and probably can deliver as we speak today.
Sorry. I just, this is such a critical point that I want us to really dive in deeper to it. And Dr. Lizama, of course, we want you to be a part of it. Belize is looking at the possibility at this time of two of the vaccines, the AstraZeneca, most likely through COVAX, and we've heard of a commitment for the Sputnik. So we have everyone, not just the Belizean public, everyone all over the world kind of watching these stories about vaccines from international sources, and you hear things like 60% or 70% versus 90%, and just naturally we think, oh, the other one is better. So there is some skepticism there about looking at the efficiency or the effectiveness of the vaccines. But put it into perspective for us. You said that AstraZeneca its results show that it's a very effective vaccine. How do you describe that to someone who perhaps has never paid attention to the difference between effectiveness in vaccines? A flu vaccine, for example, oftentimes it's 50% around that, right?
Listen, go ahead, Anna. Yeah.
Well, the AstraZeneca vaccine is supposed to be 70% effective against active infection and symptomatic infection. And the Sputnik 5 is about 91.4% effective. And both of them are 100% effective in stopping disease and hospitalization and death. So at this point, these vaccines have very, very good effects.
And the Sputnik, for example, because we don't hear about it, especially from U.S. media, which most of us would watch, it was actually, I think there was a recent medical journal, a very respected medical journal, that spoke about the effectiveness based on the investigations that they did, the Lancet Journal. Tell us about that, what we know about the Sputnik.
Well, both of them are vector-based, so they use not live, it's not really live vaccine, but it's actually vectors like the common cold vector. They use that to create immunity and have your immune system fight against the new COVID virus. So the Sputnik 5 is actually they've gone through phase 3 studies as well as AstraZeneca, and they have very good results.
And now looking at it from the rollout perspective, Dr. Greenwich, nobody knows vaccination more than pediatricians. And Belize has actually, and it's one of the things we should be proud of, we've always had a very consistently high vaccination schedule. In other words, people in Belize are very accepting of giving their children the vaccines as they're supposed to. But yet, I think that there's a little, not so overwhelming, but there are some skeptics or people who are concerned about the newness of the vaccine, about what they feel is a very fast development process. Tell me, your thoughts on what you think would be as helpful in getting people to understand the value of being vaccinated?
Okay, so when you examine what the ministry actually has at its disposal, they have a very detailed plan to cover all of these exigencies, even vaccine-related adverse effects if they occur. And they have a public relations campaign in mind, not only to educate people, but to also explain away the side effects, if you will, once your immune system gets the shot and it reacts to it. People will want to know, well, why is this happening to me, as has happened with the American public and the UK public and the other countries that have been so lucky to get the vaccine already. So there's a detailed plan in place to deal with all these exigencies, Marlene. So it would be presumptuous of us to assume that we could just come in and talk away people's fears. No, I am a kind of brusque guy, and I would like to say that, I wanted to say this morning that we really have no choice but to take this vaccine if we want to get back to our way of life, if we want to get back to having a booming economy, because everyone knows, from the panadist man in the street to the executive in his office who is seeing dwindling numbers in terms of financial gain, that this economy, this type of economy that this COVID has caused, and the lifestyle on it, that it has imposed, change that it has imposed, and the people cannot continue. So the vaccine is like, I don't know, I would like to say that it kind of backs us into a corner, because it's like war by this virus on our countries. So we have to kind of be accepting of this vaccine. My mother, who is 83 years old, she had questions about it, but she was cooped up in a house in California from June of last year. And she likes to take her car ride, and she likes to meet her grandkids. I mean, right now in Belize, there are people that are not even seeing their grandkids, older people, because they're at more risk, and the grandkids can't come to see them because they might look healthy, but they might be carrying the virus. So if we want to return to our normal way of life, I'm afraid that the vaccine is the answer. So we may have fears, and these will be addressed by the framework that the Ministry of Health in Belize has in place. But really, to be honest, I would like to say this: we have no choice but to take this vaccine. If our old people want to come out, if our healthcare workers don't want to feel at risk, if we won't have to want to shut her up every time there's a holiday like Easter coming up in a few months and so on. We don't want to shut up. We want to go out and enjoy the sun. The vaccine is the way out from the darkness. Okay? That's a quick and dirty explanation.
Talking about side effects, all vaccines will give you some kind of side effect. Just like medications, just like herbal medicines, you're going to have some kind of side effect. And the side effect of these vaccines so far have been pain or soreness at the injection site. I had mine. I had my second one, my second dose of the Moderna vaccine last week, and I had a very sore left arm after the vaccination for like 2 days, but that was all I had. Other symptoms are like mild flu-like symptoms, like low-grade fever and body aches, but it usually goes away pretty quickly. I don't think, and the virus, people need to know that the vaccine will not give you COVID-19. It does not incorporate into your DNA. It does not cause any long-term effects. So
I want us to talk a bit more about your vaccination process and some of the things there, but we're going to take a very quick break and get to some commercials in, and when we come back, we'll talk about the experience that you both had getting vaccinated and some of the things that you still have to continue to do even though you've been vaccinated. So that's coming up after the break.
Mask up. Always mask up and social distance.
All right.